talk about what is the visual intelligence and how you can make your business better by knowing exactly what images you should be using. And the reason why I chose this topic is first of all, I'm a founder. My name is Evgeny, and I'm a founder of RNPX, a global photo sharing community that worked with basically every company that you see outside of this presentation hall. We worked with Airbnb, we worked with National Geographic, with Uber, with like airlines and travel companies. And now I'm a VP of growth for Skylum, which is an intelligent photo enhancement company that makes intelligent software. And I've been a photographer for many years. More than 16 years I've been a photographer. And photography is very close to my heart. So I was thinking, what would the world without photos look like, right? It's an important question. So this is what it looks like if you look at Airbnb without photos. What kind of room is that? Is it big? Is it small? Is it old, new, modern, or classic? It's really hard to tell. Even if you go through and read all the description, knowing what the room looks like without images is extremely hard. And that's what Marina Bay Sands look like on TripAdvisor if you take the photos away. It's hard to know, like, should I visit this? Is it a dump or is it a beautiful place? Is it big? Is it small? Is it luxurious? How do you know, right? So photos play a critical part in how we perceive the world. And one more, those are the best Bali beaches according to hotels.com when you take the photos away. Do you know what you're going to? Should you book your vacation to Bali while looking at an empty screen? It's really hard. Even if you read all the description, it's really hard to know whether that's the place that you should go to or not. So the photos are actually the language. And the photos are actually processed, according to some studies, not everybody agrees with that, but they are processed by the brain 60,000 times faster than text. And photos obviously need no translations or localization. You perceive the photos immediately. You don't need to localize. You don't need to read them. You don't have to translate it in the different languages to some degree. And photos obviously join the illustrations and other visual medium as our modern way of communicating with the world and with other people around us. So it's also easy to comprehend. This is the text on the left is illustrated with a photo on the right. It takes time to read. It takes time to process. You might be spending a couple of minutes to try to read what's there, or you just took a look at the picture and you see it's Rome. Very simple, right? So the photos are critical for any business to understand how to actually react, how to get the value out, how to show the people what you're actually selling. Okay? But also photos are not exactly equal. And what I mean by this is that a good photo does not equal good photo. So the example here is that some stock photos are not as effective as what we call authentic photos, as photos taken by the customer or the photo taken by the company. And some photos, obviously, as you might imagine, convert better in terms of customers as other photos. So knowing how to captivate the right audience and with the right photo is the goal for marketers. Once you know it, it's like magic. You basically have more sales, you have more customers, you have more revenue, so you can afford a nice vacation on Bali if you want to. Okay. Obviously, stock photos are dated. While walking just through the exhibition, I already saw people and at some places using stock photos. So you see those people over and over again. You see those images over and over again. They become dated. We all seen this contact us page with the like teleconferencing people on the phone smiling. It's the same photo that people use over and over again on their websites. It's extremely boring and it's frustrating. There's actually even a meme with bad stock photos of my job on the internet where people ridicule this concept, where people just keep using those stock photos, those bad stock photos over and over again without actually trying to innovate. And it's bad, not because it's just funny or not funny for some people. It's also not funny because that's a Malaysian newspaper that published 2 ads using the same stock photo. Insurance company and another company decided that this photo fits their image, and then you have the newspaper. So the trust is immediately eradicated. So you can't, like, when you're looking at this, you're seeing that people didn't put enough effort into this, right? So it's a waste of money, it's a waste of time, and it actually damages the reputation of the brand. But there's a better way. So the company that I founded many years ago, 500px, found a unique solution to this. And we launched a product that's called 500px for Business that allows the companies to exactly know which photo turns people into purchases. So kind of like turns their intent into actual purchases. And this is how it works. This is basically the holy grail of marketers. It's not just our company that does it today, but when we started, we were the only ones. It was a unique feature because we have a lot of data points that point to how people actually act on those photos, how they perceive that. So there's a lot of cultural differences in photos, as I mentioned earlier. And there's a huge cultural divide that brands should know. There's also a difference between continents. There's a difference between demographics, like younger people and older people. And there's a difference between men and women, which is pretty obvious. So I'll give you like a hands-on example. Chewy.com sells dog treats and dog and pet supplies. And basically, they want to market to women in Japan, about 30 to 39 years old, who own dogs, obviously. So how to choose the right image? Do they like Chihuahuas? Do they like what kind of dogs they like? What kind of breed should they put on the packaging? What kind of TV ad should they make? Like, what is popular, right? And 500px created a solution that basically tells them exactly which breed is popular today in Japan. Not, well, they can check it last week, but it gives you the real-time data that Akita is the most popular breed in Japan for women. And in the United States, that's a French Bulldog, and in Russia, that's a Yorkshire Terrier. And the reason we know this is because we collect billions of signals from people all over the world, similar to Facebook. And we know exactly which demographic in which part of the world enjoys which kind of photos. And so we process this with sophisticated algorithms, obviously, that tells you the exact point of what's happening in the world today. And the reason for this is that if you go on the ground and you decide to collect this data during the survey on the ground in Japan, you get the data that is between 1 and 10 years old, depending on for how long people have dogs. So they may have purchased or adopted the pet 10 years ago because of a movie or something that happened 10 years ago. Or if they go and get surveys on the ground, then Japanese might be more subjective and give them the wrong data because they would choose Japanese specific breeds because they want to feel more patriotic, right? So instead, when we have the private online activity where people can genuinely feel that they are in the privacy of their own home, they can reveal their unique interests. And those interests are, we can collect them every single second, and they're obviously anonymous, and we give you that. For example, in Japan, we can start segregating. So if it's women of specific age, they like Akita, but if those are men, they prefer Shiba Inu. Right? So it allows you to target more precisely of what you want for the brand. So here's another example. Booking.com wants to market to men and women, older age, 60 to 79, living in the suburbs. So what do people like? Like, what kind of hotel experience are important to those audience? And again, we turn to the data points that people tell us that's what they like. And for younger people, the most important thing becomes, can I make an Instagrammable photo, right? We don't care about how big the room is. We don't care about the size of a swimming pool or anything. We just want a photo that gets the most likes on Instagram, right? That's pretty common. I guess people knew that before without data. But for middle-aged people, the great room and amenities become more and more important. And for older people, the comfort and prestige, knowing that they can afford this, knowing that they worked all their life for this, and can afford a great vacation, becomes more and more important. Those are not just the guesses that the marketers tell you if you go to an agency and tell them, hey, what do people like? Those are the data points that are perceived and can be analyzed and can be used to implement the specific policies. So if I go online, you don't show me the fancy restaurants because I cannot afford them, right? You show me the Instagrammable places that I want to go and take a picture. Well, I consider myself young, so just, all right. And here's another example with my own company. We wanted to increase engagement with our photos on the platform, with ForeverPX. And so we decided to state a goal of we want to market to a new wave of amateur photographers. So how do you do this? Right? We were known for photos that are very like artificially pretty. So instead, we took at the data. We looked at the data, and we saw that the posed and over-processed and saturated, kind of like stock photo-looking images actually have a lower engagement rather than more like raw and authentic and kind of like out of the camera feel, the photos that you and I can take with our smartphones. So those are more realistic looking photos. They can actually, that's what our data points, that they perceive more engagement. People want to associate with those kind of photos. So they click more, they engage with the platform more. So those are the main points. And so lastly, in conclusion, the visual intelligence can give you three main points. So first of all, it's a better market segmentation. Knowing that it's not just one image that you're looking at. Those are the multiple images. You start segmenting your younger audience, your older audience, your male audience and female audience in different countries. So for example, we found out that people in Japan like to look at photos of Japan. But people in Hong Kong hate looking at photos of Hong Kong. They want to look at photos of Japan, right? Because they're tired of living in the smaller apartments in cramped cities, so they actually want to get out of that. But for Japanese, they like looking at nature and like looking at images of Japan. So those are kind of like very actionable differences when you start to market to the audience. You start to understand that you need to know how they perceived it and how they act on those kind of photos. So it obviously helps better to understand new markets. You don't have to go into a new market and spend tons of time and money to understand what actually people do. You can use the companies like ours or others to do that kind of intelligence, to do that kind of targeting, to know more specifically what do people like, how you start targeting the right audience. And that means segmenting the audience into smaller and smaller and smaller chunks so that the smallest audience might be as small as this row of people. Like we can target specifically to these 4 people if they have the same interests, I hope. But if not, so you start basically making those little chunks of audiences and you market specifically to them with different message, with different images, and that's how you can basically increase your engagement. And lastly, you can obviously have a faster adaptation to different trends because the world is becoming more global, the things move a lot faster. So now having the same image for years is not relevant anymore. You cannot do this. Imagine if you're going and looking at the advertisement for the bank and somebody in the ad is using iPhone 5. You don't trust that bank. They didn't update their images. You need kind of like fresher images. You need fresher haircuts, different styles. You need to adapt to that kind of images. And those used to be every 5 years if we were talking about like 20 or 30 years ago. But now it's becoming more compressed. You might use the same image for as short as 1 week time, or 1 day, or maybe 1 hour. Maybe something's happening online that your ad that you've been running is either relevant or actually disrespectful of what's happening in the world. So you have to be more adaptable to what the trends are, look at what's happening, and be able to make the change. So that's it for me. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Thank you.